Set up. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Maryam, for being here today on our third episode of the Beyond BDes. If you wanted to just give a little bit of an intro as to who you are.
Hi guys, my name is Maryam. I graduated from the BDes program this year in 2025, and I'm currently doing my master's here at UCLA, doing the Master of Science in Architecture and Urban Design. It's a one-year program, and I'm 2 terms in.
Okay. Before we get to your experience at UCLA in the master's program, if you just wanted to talk a little bit about your early interest in architecture and getting you to UBC, and maybe if you can talk a little bit about your experience in the BDes program.
Ooh. My interest in architecture honestly stems from a lot of where everyone else is, where I loved science and I loved art, and I saw that architecture was the unification of the two. But specifically, I was interested in becoming a doctor. And then I was shadowing my aunt, who is a doctor, in the public hospital in Kuwait, which is where I'm from. And I noticed that it was really depressing. And I was like, I cannot work here every single day, this environment. And then it made me question, what about it, other than obviously the sickness and everything, what about it is so depressing and how could we improve it? And my answer was the architecture, because there was no lights, it felt more like a jail. And so that kind of was like, wait a minute, I want to do something here. I want to be able to make an environment where so much is going on, so much is happening, make it feel more welcoming and more of a nice experience for the staff and the visitors and the people that are undergoing procedures. And then that's kind of what catapulted me into architecture.
That's so interesting. I feel like I actually haven't heard too many people. Like, I know you said at the beginning, you're like most people, it's like mixing like that science and that and like design almost. And I feel like actually I haven't heard that combination too much, which is really
Really?
interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
What was your reasoning then choosing UBC as a school when you wanted to decide to do architecture?
Um, Great question. I was really interested in the BDes program. So I was looking at other BArch programs and hold up, hold for siren. If it's too loud, let me know there's sirens
No,
going.
you're good. You're good.
Yeah, so I was interested in how it had all three. It had architecture, landscape, and urban design. And I didn't know which one I wanted to be in. And I also didn't want to be confined to just architecture because I am interested in all design. And so I saw that BDes was going to open me up to anything post grad. And then another reason was Vancouver and the environment of Vancouver. I love, love, love nature, and I get so inspired and so calm when I'm in nature. And so I wanted to be somewhere that was surrounded by nature. And so I feel like those are the two main reasons why I chose UBC.
So yeah, I feel like that's the same for me. Like I'm not originally from Vancouver as well, and it's like being in that natural environment.
Mhm.
I also feel like your schooling, especially within architecture, is so much about like the surroundings that you're in because all your projects are based around where you are. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that makes a really big difference.
Mhm.
In terms of being at UBC, is there any like specific classes that stood out to you or just your different experiences within the program?
Mhm. I loved how each semester we were doing a different topic, so it kind of kept us on our toes, and it kind of helped learn how to wear 1,000 different hats. So one semester we're doing landscape, the next semester we're doing housing. And I think that that's so important, being able to understand all three and find how to work in each of them. The skills are completely transferable between each of these sections of architecture. And so I loved that. And then specifically, I loved my thesis semester. Um, Being able to just take everything that I had learned previous years and apply it into one where I had the freedom to pick whatever topic, if it was landscape, if it was architecture. And then under the guidance of my professor, Bill Peckett, he really pushed me to go deep and decide what I wanted to say as a designer. And at the moment, it was really hard and it was challenging and I didn't enjoy it. But I'm so, so grateful that it happened because at the end, I was so proud of what I had done and proud of how I was able to speak through my architecture.
This might be like a complicated question to ask without like the visual, but can you like describe what your thesis project was? I'm actually very curious now.
Definitely. My thesis was focused on Kuwait, and it was designing a women's shelter that was also an art gallery. So it was finding this in between where I wanted the women to be protected and safe, but then also celebrated, and finding the biggest challenge was finding this safety versus privacy and public versus private, and having it in like the central of Kuwait. And just so many issues came about the premise that I had built up. And so figuring out how to, make it work was really hard, but it worked out at the end, I think.
That sounds really cool.
Maybe.
Um, Now, I also, just doing some research, I saw that you were the NOMAS president. Was that last year?
That was last year.
Last
Yeah.
year, as well as you're involved in Fashion Club.
Hmm.
I just wonder if you wanted to talk about either of those things. I think those are both very like interesting, and I think obviously a lot of people in my program are also heavily involved in like NOMAS and like other kind of architecture associations. But actually, quite a bit of architecture students are in the Fashion Club. I feel like are involved with that. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, I loved both of them. Fashion Club, we actually started, like a group of us in BDes started, specifically Stephen Lin, he was the president. And so in the first year was mostly just architecture students. And then slowly throughout the years, we started bringing in the rest of the school. And that was an incredibly like fun and rewarding thing to do, and being able to have something outside of architecture that like connected me to the rest of the school was super fun. And also just being able to like build the club from ground up with my friends and my peers was so much fun. And then for NOMAS, joined, I believe, in second year as like an events coordinator. And then with each year, I would change positions. So I was sponsorship one year, and then I was vice president the other. And just looking up to the presidents before me, they were Soha. She was so amazing, and she's what inspired me and encouraged me to take on the presidency role, which was incredible, so rewarding. And being able to travel to Baltimore for the competition, and now seeing Han as the president, he's doing amazing. But just being involved in student things in my undergrad was, I think, so important to my experience because it connected me to other students and taught me so much about leadership, teamwork, and just was fun overall. Highly recommend.
and correct me if I'm wrong, did you also do some internships throughout your undergraduate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did 2 internships. One of them was at a design studio. There I was doing more like graphic design. I was doing website design and helping out with workshops. And then the other one, closer to my graduation, was at an architecture firm. And that was a really important experience, being able to see if I could see myself in the workforce in an architectural firm, and the type of work that they did. It definitely helped me understand that I do want to be in this field to some capacity, whether that's actually in architecture or in the design field in general. And it was really important just to see like the office culture, I think.
And we'll obviously talk in a few minutes about your portfolio for your master's program, but in terms of when you were like looking for these internships through undergraduate, I don't know if you could just talk a little bit about your process about finding these places and maybe how you thought about your portfolio for those sort of things.
Mhm. For my internships, I applied back home in Kuwait because I knew that I was going to be there for the summer, not in Vancouver. And so I was looking at firms that had projects that excited me and things that I wanted to learn from. I think that's the most important thing, being in an environment that you're learning from, that the exact same as university. And so I chose a firm, the Al Architects, because their projects materiality was something I was really, really interested in. And then in terms of my portfolio for them, I kind of tweaked it, and put projects in that I thought were under the same purview of the work that they were doing, and then also some that were a bit different and also I highlighted the programs that I knew. Lots of firms don't use Revit yet back in Kuwait, and so I really was like, I know Revit, like, and just leveraging the skills that I had and showing that I would be an asset to them. That was
Right.
definitely it.
And then so now let's go. So you're at the end of your 4 years at UBC, and then you started to think about um, your master's. I just want, if you could just talk through your process of deciding what type of program you were looking for a master's, and if you maybe looked at a few different universities.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me was I wanted to go to a university that was going to challenge me. and teach me something that I hadn't already learned at BDes. And so I looked at a bunch of different schools, and I also chose specifically on location because I love Los Angeles. I visited it in November 2023 during reading break, and I literally came back and told my friends, I was like, I'm moving there. I don't even care. It's happening. And so that was a big, big factor. And then I looked at UCLA, USC, SciArc, and then I also applied to like UBC and UFT. But mostly it was all in LA. And then the way I decided between those three schools was really looking at their programs and their professors and the work that the students of those schools had churned out by the end of it, and also looking at, there was many factors, and also looking at what type of work the graduating students went into. So I noticed that SciArc was a lot more experimental, and it was lots of the students went into video game. It was also a lot more entrepreneurial, like you build up your own firm mostly from SciArc. At least this was my understanding. And then between USC and UCLA, I was interested in both, and I was really excited by UCLA's lab and UCLA's professors and the work that the students were producing at UCLA. I found more something I wanted to do. And so that's kind of what pushed me towards UCLA.
Did you make this decision before you started the actual application process, or was this more
Oh
like
no.
you applied to all of them and see what came back?
Yeah, it was
Okay,
definitely throwing my nets and seeing what I catch. I would have been happy to go to any of these schools. All of them were like, I made sure to choose schools that I would be happy at. And it was just whoever picks me, I will choose. And then after I got my acceptances, that's when I sat down, I looked at them all, and I took a long time to make my decision.
There. Were the application processes similar across the board, or were any of them like stand out? They had anything unique about them?
Generally, they have the same deliverables, so portfolio statements. Most of the statements varied and asked different questions. And then I think USC asked for a video interview as well. Some of them did have like one or two other deliverables, but most of them were under the same amount.
Great. I think if you wanted to talk a little bit now about your portfolio that helped you get into this university, we'd all be excited to see that.
Okay, give me a second to share my
All
screen.
good.
Okay,
I will
just
allow
set my
that.
request.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this is the start of my portfolio. This is a photo that I took in Greece. With my portfolio, I wanted to show a diversity of projects and also give them my personality. And so this was my attempt at that. So I showed four main projects, and then the fifth section was further explorations. And I tried for each of the projects to show a different skill or a different aspect of architecture that I had played around with. The first was the NOMA conference, the competition that we had applied to with NOMAS. And I think showcasing this as my first project was really important because we had worked really hard on this, and I loved the deliverables that we had produced. So having this full bleed as my first one was, I think, good. And then we go into some diagrams, some renders. Okay, so that was the first one. And also an important thing was, to me, was having rhythm and repetition. So you'll notice that the start of each of my projects was all full bleeds. That was some feedback I had gotten at one of the Sala reviews, portfolio nights. So thank you for that. My second project was in third year, my housing project with Ricky Huang. I really enjoyed this project because I was working with my friend and we produced some really fun things. And it was also showing architecture. So the first one was the competition. The second one was smaller scale and some model making and diagrams. The third one was also in third year, was a case study. This one I put in because I loved also the graphics that we did. This was a more fun, and I think this shows a bit more of my personality. And so just having this like pop of color in the middle of it. The fourth one was landscape with Micah Reed. And here I wanted to show some sketches as well. And some more diagrams, some more experimentation with different types of visuals. And then here I showed some more specific research on landscape. And then lastly was my additional explorations. So the summer before I graduated, I did a summer program at SciArc, and it was kind of my exploration of LA and seeing if I actually did want to live here or not. And so I included that and the work that I had done in that summer. And so it was a lot of computational design. It was, yeah. And then lastly, I showed my fashion photography because it's something that is really important to me and I love. And so I just wanted to show another form of visual communication to me, which is photography. Yeah, that's my portfolio, short and sweet.
Oh, no, great. Thank you for so much for showing that. How did, in terms of your process of putting this portfolio together, how long did you do you find it like it took you to make a portfolio and the process?
The summer before I graduated, I asked a lot of people for advice, and lots of them told me to progressively build up my portfolio because when you leave it to the last minute, it becomes really overwhelming. And so to the best of my abilities, I tried every time I would finish a project, I would kind of condense it into an InDesign file, not specific in terms of layout, but just I would pick the specific visuals. I would just, because when you produce a project, you produce so many visuals. And so I would just pick the most important ones and then put them into my InDesign file and kind of lay it out just so that later on when it was time for me to really focus on my portfolio, I kind of already had that choice done. And it was a matter of like just positioning and making sure that it flowed well. So I would say that that is some advice I'd give in terms of portfolio. But overall, I did most of it, I would say November, December was the time that I like really cranked out the rest of the portfolio.
Oh, could you just end the
Oh,
share
sorry.
screen? Oh,
Yeah.
good. Cool. Is there any other like I know you said that you went to those portfolio review nights. Is there any other sort of like tips or anything that stand out to you? What people like said about portfolio or anything like that?
Ooh. Keep the text to a minimum. I feel like you must have heard that from everyone else. Definitely
Yeah.
keep the text to a minimum and only put in text what your drawings don't already describe. So the goal there is to have your drawings be able to tell the story for you. And then also showing sketches and showing your process and showing its different iterations. I think that's really important as well. Also having a rhythm and having like a visual language that carries throughout the whole thing so they can tell that one person has done this because stylistically your projects can vary from each other, but having the entire portfolio look like one unified work, I think that's important as well. I think those are my main advices. If I think of anything else, I'll let you know.
Sounds good. Did you have any variation in the type of projects you use for the different schools, or did you find like these were like the 4 or 5 that were like your strongest ones and you use them for all of your different programs?
Some of the portfolios asked for less pages. So when those were asked, I would take away a project or two that I felt weren't as strong as the rest. But generally, like my best ones, I did choose for all my portfolios. And for each university, I did tweak my portfolio slightly, just making sure it was specifically curated for the university I was applying to, whether that was in the order of what I was showing or in which projects I was keeping out or leaving in. But generally, yes, these like 4 main projects plus the little exploration at the end, I think were in all of the applications. Maybe 1 or 2 weren't.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got in, so congratulations for you. You decided where to go. I know it's only been, you said, you're how many terms?
Yeah, so UCLA does term system instead of a semester system. So there's 4 quarters. And I started at the beginning of August, so I've done my summer term and I'm in my fall term right now.
See.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's been really interesting.
Do you want to talk just a little bit about maybe some of the classes that you've taken so far and maybe some of those projects that you've been a part of?
Definitely. So what was really cool about the summer term was, okay, so for the whole year, there's 3 studio options, 3 different professors, 3 different topics. And so in the summer term, they kind of give you the chance to test each 3. where like each studio gets like a week and a half to like show you what, like a trial of like what you would do in the year. And at the end of the summer term, you pick which studio you want to be in. So the options were material innovation, which is the one I'm in. And then there was AI and technology, and then there was entertainment and like video production. Um, so all very different. And I chose the material innovation one because with Yulia Corner and Tucker Van Leeuwen, it's such an interesting thing. It's the moment that I tried it out, I was like, this is where I want to go. Because we're learning a lot about materials, and that's something I've always found super interesting. And we're really deep diving into softwares and programs, and also like I'm using softwares that I usually avoided in my undergraduate. So things like Grasshopper and Blender and Maya and ZBrush and Cinema 4D, these are all new programs to me. So I'm really learning a lot. And then we're also doing a lot of 3D printing and a lot of iteration, and it's really fun. It's really challenging. Some of the projects we're working on right now is we're looking into aquatic systems and kind of a biomimicry project, and looking at how we can get inspired from our specific specimen or animal that we've chosen. And so that process is also really interesting, being able to focus in on one small thing and blow it up and see what we can do with it. It's been really, really fun.
In terms of the like the class sizes and like cohort studio culture, like how big is your class?
I think my entire cohort is 40 people, I think. And my specific studio though is 14 people. So 14 of us for the whole year in the studio. And we kind of have one project that spans the entire year. And then just slowly progresses throughout each term and changes slightly. Not slightly, drastically.
Yeah.
And then the other classes I'm taking, oh, so the way that this works, which is really interesting to me, is that we have our main studio with our two professors, and then we also have seminars with each of the professors where they teach us specific, whether programs or skills or information that's going to help us in our studios. And then we also have a critical studies seminar. And then I'm also taking an extra class with one of the other professors about AI and machine learning, because I feel like that's very important in the design world right now. And I'm so glad I'm taking that class because it's really teaching me how to use AI as a tool, and learning how like the behind the scenes of what goes into AI and generative design. And so that's another really interesting thing at UCLA.
Is there I find this program actually quite interesting because it's the most like different that I've heard from like just like the traditional like masters of architecture programs. And I know too a lot of at other master's programs you do get a mix of like people who went into like a BDes program, but a lot of people also didn't. I'm just curious, do you know about if any other of your people in your cohort were like, is this their first time in a design program? Is there, or is there a lot of people really have that design background to be in something like this?
Yeah. So I'm in the MSAUD, which is actually a post-professional degree. So everyone in this degree is coming from a Bachelor of Architecture. I think I'm the only one that's coming from a non-B arc. So that's been really interesting to see the difference between what I've learned versus what other B arcs have learned, and like a 5-year degree versus a 4-year degree. And it did make me a lot more confident in BDes because I do feel like I have a good grasp on everything that we're doing. And then I did talk to the people that are in the MArch program, and it's such a wild variety. Like I think since the MSAUD is a post-professional, so most people are coming from BArch. But MArch, it's people from philosophy, there's people who are coming from sociology, there's people who are coming from engineering, such wildly different backgrounds. But also to mention, in my program, lots of them are coming from maybe 2 or 3 years in between where they worked. So they graduated and then they worked for a couple of years and then they joined MSAUD.
I actually was thinking about that too, because I believe I think it was Michi who worked for a year before going. Were you contemplating that, or was it pretty clear you wanted to go right from your undergraduate and then go right into a master's program?
For me, it was clear that I wanted to go into my master's right away. But I did have a second there where I was debating it. And I honestly, it just boiled down to me being ready to do my master's. Some people don't feel as ready and they feel like they want to work and build up that experience first before they go into the master's, just to like help them understand what they want to do with their master's. But I feel like since I had a clear understanding of where I wanted to go, it was easier for me to make that decision and just go straight away.
So, and then it's a year, you said it's a year program, correct?
Yes, it is.
Does that make it feel a little bit more like intense in terms of the workload and how tight the like terms are back to back?
Definitely. Like it's first an adjustment to the quarter system. Like already everything is a lot faster paced. But then also I think the fact that it's 1 year helps me be okay with that fast pace because I'm like, it's okay, it's just 1 year of go, 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 and then I'm done. So I think the 1 year is intimidating and scary that in 1 year I'll be done and in the workforce, but
Yeah.
also exciting because I feel like by the end of this, I'll feel a lot more ready to do that.
Do you have a certain goal for what after graduating looks like? I know that's probably a very scary question. I hate when I get it, so I don't know.
Valid. Um, I definitely do want to work in this field. And I think probably here in LA, if that works out. Definitely in the design world, definitely in the architecture. But I don't know if that's capital A architecture or lowercase a architecture. Um, I think I'm excited to start working and try out 100,000 different things until I figure out what specifically it is that drives me and I'm very passionate for. Um, right now it's everything, which is daunting and scary because I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's also super exciting that like I'll apply to everything and we'll see like where we go.
Um, Before we end, just a fun question. Favorite things about living in California so far, maybe favorite food. I'm
Oh my
even
God.
just looking, I'm looking at our two screens and I'm like, wow, what a
I'm like
contrast. I'm
moving
like,
away from
it's
the
like
sun.
it's gray and it's rainy on like my window, and I just see like this like sun coming in and I'm like,
Here's Los
wow,
Angeles.
yeah, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, I was literally like moving away from the streak of light on my face right now.
Yeah.
Um, I love living here. I loved Vancouver so, so much, so much. Vancouver in and of itself is such a special place to be. Um, but definitely the weather here, it makes a lifetime of a difference. Like, I think now it's raining in Vancouver.
It is a
It
lot.
is, it has a special place in my heart, but
Yeah.
I think I was at a point where I kind of needed the sun. And so there are some gloomy days here, but generally, like, this is the weather where it's not too cold, sunny, and like we can go to the beach. Yes, the water is cold, but we can still get there.
Definitely. And then if you have just any final like words of like advice for anybody in either like in undergraduate looking for a master's program, any like anything like that
Like about applying or just in
about
general.
applying, or yeah, I guess any sort of advice that you have about anything, to be honest with you.
Okay. I would say have fun, really, really, in like all different aspects. Like have fun with the work you're doing. I think it can get really stressful in your bachelor's and in any work that you do when you put a lot of pressure on yourself and you have such high expectations. And those are very valid. But I think so long as you're having fun with no matter what you're doing, that's all that matters. Because in the long run, this is the life that you're living. So if you can find the whimsy, if you can find the fun in anything that you're doing, I think you're good. So even when you're applying to your master's, have fun with it. Like reflect on like the fact that you're combining all of these projects and all this hard work that you've done over the culmination of 3 4 years. Like that's such an amazing thing to do, and give yourself a pat on the back for all the work that you've done. And you got this. You got this, and I believe in all of you.
Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me.